The purpose of this video is to show you how to set up a standard 5-piece drum set. So first I'm going to show you what you need. On this side, we have all of our drums and cymbals. So we have a hi-hat cymbals. Underneath there we have a splash, a crash, and our ride cymbal. The next thing we have is our toms. We have our high tom, our mid tom, and our floor tom right here. Then we're going to have a snare drum. You can always tell it's a snare drum because it's going to have the snares on the bottom. And then last we have our bass drum. Over here we have the piece that attaches the rack toms to the bass drums. This cymbal arm that's going to have this splash cymbal on it. We have our legs for our floor tom that look like this. And then we have 3 cymbal stands, one for the ride and splash, the crash, and the hi-hat. Right here we have our bass drum pedal. Not all of them look like this. Mine's a double bass pedal, so that's why it has 2 of them. Our snare stand and our drummer's drum. Also, you're going to need some drumsticks and your drummer key, which is a very important piece to have. That's how you're going to tighten and loosen things as you need it. So step 1 is going to be to start with your bass drum. That's because it's going to be the centrally located piece on your kit, and you're just going to set up everything else based on where this is positioned. So you want to put this kind of in the center of your playing space. And the next thing you want to do is let these legs down, and this will make sure that your bass drum does not move around while you're playing. So you just loosen those with this little wing nut right here and make sure they're touching the floor. The next thing you're going to want to do to set up the bass drum is to put this piece, which is going to actually hold your rack toms. And usually there's going to be either a hole in the bass drum for that, or you'll have a piece that attaches to your cymbal stands to attach the rack toms to. So that's just going to slide right down there. And you're going to want to adjust the height of this. That way when you're sitting down, the rack toms are easily reachable. If they're not too high, you don't have to extend too far for them, and they're easily reachable, but also not so low that they're going to hit the bass drum itself like when you hit those drums. So step 2, we're going to put on our rack toms now. And to do that, you loosen this piece right here and slide those on and then tighten it. You're going to want your rack toms to be not exactly level, but not angled something crazy that it'll be hard to play on. You're going to want those above the bass drum, that way they're not hitting it when you hit the drum. And you want them relatively close together, that way when you're playing it's easy to switch from drum to drum. So we're going to attach the second one now, same way we did the first. Then we're going to move on to step 3, which is going to be actually to attach your bass drum pedal. And to do that, this little clamp right here is going to tighten onto the bass drum itself, that way this thing doesn't move anymore when you're playing. And this is where you're going to need your drum key, because to tighten it, you tighten this piece right here. You're going to attach this to the bass drum, and you just want to make sure that clamp is on the bass drum. And then you can tighten it with your hand first. But you're going to need your drum key to make sure that it doesn't move at all while you're playing. Step 4, we're going to set up our floor tom. And to do that, you're going to need to attach the floor tom legs. It's going to have 3 legs, and you can see that they bend outward. You're going to want this bend to be facing outward from the drum to make sure that it's stable. So you loosen these pieces right here, and then the legs are just going to slide through. And once they're at the height that you like, you're just going to tighten them down. Now when you're setting up your floor tom, you're going to want it to be level with your snare, so keep that in mind when we come back to the snare later. And you're also going to want it to be slightly angled towards you. So we just put the back legs on. We're going to put on the front one now. And you want this just slightly bent inwards towards you. That way it's just easier to reach, more ergonomical to play. So we're going to get that set up, and we're going to want to have it close to the bass drum. That way you just have all your drums close together, but again, not so close that's going to be touching anything else while you play. Step 5 will be to set up your snare drum. So you need your snare stand. And like I said earlier, you're going to want it to be roughly the same height as your floor tom. That way nothing feels awkward while you're playing. And for mine, if you have a double bass pedal, it's easiest to put the snare stand between the two pedals. If not, then your snare stand will go between your bass drum pedal and your hi-hat pedal, which will be over here. So your snare goes on these 3 rubber tips that are on the snare stand, and then you're actually going to tighten this black knob down here, and that'll make sure that the drum stays in place. And then, like the floor tom, you're going to have, some drummers like their snare drum just completely flat and level, and others tilt it towards themselves a little bit, and that just, again, just makes it a little bit easier to play. You can even, I have mine tilted just slightly towards the floor tom, and that just allows you to really just be able to reach all your drums very comfortably, not stretch for anything, and just play a lot more comfortable. So step 6, we're going to set up our cymbal stands. Now for the hi-hat stand, you're going to have a pedal on it. It's going to have these little rods on it. You're going to want those rods to come through these holes right here. So they just slide into place. Like that. Then you loosen this piece right here, and you can bring the legs out. And in my case, since I have a double bass pedal, I just put my hi-hat stand so I can reach it easily, either pedal easily. If you don't have a double bass, you're just going to want to put it in a comfortable position relative to your other bass, your bass drum pedal, and you're going to want it close to your snare and just at a place where you can kind of place your feet at like a 45-degree angle and play really comfortably. Next, we're going to set up our crash cymbal stand. That's going to be the same thing. You loosen this piece right here and bring out the legs. And you're going to want this one on the left side of your bass drum, kind of right behind your snare. And when you're setting up your cymbal stands, you're going to want those at a low enough level so that you can reach them easily, but high enough to where they're not going to hit any of your other drums while you're playing. So last, we're going to get our ride cymbal stand, and that's going to come over here on the other side of the floor tom. Same thing, you're going to loosen this piece right here, bring out the legs, and kind of position that pretty close to your floor tom, and tighten that. And then I also play with a splash cymbal, which is what this little arm is for, and this allows you to have an extra cymbal without having to worry about a whole another cymbal stand. So that's just going to attach right onto my right cymbal stand. We're going to have our drummer's throne. We're going to set that right behind the snare, and you're going to want to sit so the snare is actually in between your legs, and just make sure that the bass drum pedal is comfortable to reach, as well as the hi-hat pedal. And the height of the drummer's throne, you want to sit at a 90-degree, or so your feet are at a 90-degree angle. You don't want to be too low to where you're having to reach for things, and you also don't want to be too high to where it's not comfortable to use your pedals. We're going to put on our cymbals now. So we'll start with the hi-hat, and with the hi-hat, you're going to have a hi-hat clutch, it's called, which is this piece right here. And that's what's going to actually allow you to hold the top cymbal in place on the hi-hat stand. And the way to tell apart your bottom from your top hi-hat cymbal is the bottom one's going to be a little bit heavier. So you're going to put that one on first. And this one's not holding in place by anything, it just moves freely. Then we're going to put the top cymbal on top. That slides down, up, so move it all the way down, and then up a little bit, and tighten it. And the weight of it is actually going to bring it down a little bit when I let go. It'll just sit there. And you want a little bit of space between the two cymbals, that way you can get all your different sounds out of the hi-hat. Next we're going to put our crash on, which in my case is a China cymbal, but it's going to serve the same purpose as any other crash. And to do that, you loosen this top wing nut right here. And then you're going to remove the washer and the top foam piece. And then the cymbal is going to get placed on in between the two foam pieces. And then you place the washer on top of that, and that'll just help it all tighten down better. And when you're tightening on your cymbals, it's very important that you don't over-tighten them, because you want your cymbal to be able to move around, and that's going to let it have the best sound that it possibly can. You're going to take your sticks, you're going to sit at your drum set, and just make sure that you can hit everything comfortably. You don't have to reach for anything, you're not sitting too low, your seat's not too far away or anything. You just want to make sure that everything's comfortable, and then you're good to go.